Hello, my name is Mimi. Welcome back to my channel. For my birthday this year, I finally got a 3D printer. It was a bit of an investment, but after spending the past couple of years practicing 3D modeling, I figured it was time to put those skills to use. So, I decided to take the plunge and actually start printing my own creations. I was inspired by a figurine my very good friend got me from the Palace of Versailles gift shop during his travels. He knew how much I love everything to do with Marie Antoinette, and recognized this dress as one of Marie Antoinette's most iconic looks in her portraits. Since this is a mass-produced figurine, the details aren't exactly accurate. For instance, the silhouette feels closer to a Victorian bustle dress than the Grand Habit de Cour of the 18th century, but still, I found it immensely inspiring. And here are the actual portraits of Marie Antoinette wearing the same dress, painted by her favorite portrait artist, Elisabeth Vigée-Lebrun. The queen is shown in a beautifully draped silk gown, clearly one of her favorites since there are several portraits of her in this look. I designed the figurine with more exaggerated and stylized features, pushing the proportions and silhouette to make it feel more like an art toy. I've been really obsessed with art toys lately, so I wanted to create my own take on Marie Antoinette in that style. And this is the finished 3D model of my figurine. I sculpted it using the Nomad Sculpt app on my iPad, and it took me about a couple of months to finish. My original goal of practicing 3D modeling was to create my own ball-jointed dolls, so this was actually my first time sculpting hair and clothes. It took a lot of trial and error, countless redos, and more YouTube tutorials than I can count. Would you be interested in seeing my 3D modeling process? Let me know in the comments. Eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed that I took inspiration for the face from the Silkstone Barbie sculpt. I absolutely love Silkstone Barbies. They're so elegant and timeless, and I've always wanted to collect them. One of my ultimate grail dolls is the Delphine Silkstone Barbie. Hopefully someday I'll be lucky enough to add her to my collection. I sent my 3D model off to print in separate parts. I wanted to keep a somewhat imposing size, so the pieces were pretty big. The skirt alone took around 10 hours to print. I still can't believe we live in an age where you can create something limited only by your imagination. Being able to bring an idea to life completely from scratch without relying on what's already out there feels so liberating. I printed several copies of the figurine so that I could experiment with different ways of coloring and finishing them. Now on to the face-up. The printed parts had slight sheen to them, so I sanded the surface using fine grain sanding sponge. After giving 3 sprays of the Mr. Super Clear sealant, I began the face-up by mapping out the placement of the iris and filling them in using watercolor pencil. Once I was happy with the iris placement, I began filling in the sclera. When the color stops building up, it's time for another layer of Mr. Super Clear. Always remember to wear filtration mask and spray in well-ventilated area, as the sealant is crazy toxic. Wait around the 20 minutes after spraying until the sealant completely dries. Now I've moved on to the blush. I'm using soft pastel dust with a makeup brush to gently apply color to the cheeks, chin, forehead, ears, and the tip of the nose. Remember, doll face-ups are all about building up layers. So even if the color doesn't show up as strongly as you'd like in the first few passes, don't worry, just keep going and trust the process. Using brown soft pastel dust, I'm bringing out the features of the sculpt. Adding subtle shadows to the crevices of the face really gives it a lifelike depth. Since the head is quite small, these shadows help your eyes pick up even the tiniest details. Using red soft pastel dust and a smaller makeup brush, I'm starting to build up the first layers for the lips. Personally, I love face sculpts with slightly open mouths that show the front teeth. I think those features give the face a softer, dreamier look. I first tried coloring the teeth with a watercolor pencil, but the gap between the lips was so small that I couldn't quite reach them. So instead, I decided to use a fine brush and some gouache paint. White can be one of the trickier colors to build up with watercolor pencil, so while I had the white gouache paint out, I decided to fill in the sclera as well. Using brown gouache paint, I'm defining the mouth. I like using gouache paint for face-ups because unlike acrylic paint, which you basically have to scrape off if it dries and you make a mistake, gouache can be reactivated with water, so it's much easier to work with. Using a brow template I made and some brown soft pastel, I'm adding the eyebrows to the face. Since the template itself is opaque, it's a bit hard to see exactly where I'm placing the brows, which kind of feels like trading one problem for another. But this can be fixed by using transparent tracing paper to make your template instead. Using black gouache paint, I'm painting the eye lines. As I mentioned earlier, I took inspiration from the Silkstone Barbie face sculpt, and the eyeline probably is the most direct reference I drew from. Layers upon layers later, I finally reached this stage. I thought I was recording the whole time, but it turns out a lot of the mid-stage footage is missing. But that's just as well, since I was mostly repeating the same process as before. Anyway, what I did was keep building up the layers and adding some blue eyeshadow. Now that I'm happy with the opacity, I'm going to start fine-tuning the details. Using white gouache paint, I'm adding highlights to the features. This stage is always a lot of fun because adding highlights really pulls everything together and brings the face to life. Here, I'm going back and forth between adding highlights and deepening the shadows. It can be hard to know when a face-up is truly finished, because there's always more I could do. I can always add more details or fix something to make it look better. But I think there's a point where a face-up goes from looking well done to looking overworked. I guess knowing when to stop just comes with experience. And here's the finished face-up. I can't even tell you how excited I was for this. It's my very first time painting on my own sculpt. For the rest of the figurine, I really just wanted to have fun. As exciting as it was, designing and sculpting my own 3D model, printing it, and doing the face-up took a lot of careful planning and tedious calculations. So for this part, I wanted something more spontaneous, something others might feel inspired to try too. I don't know if you've heard of bear bricks. They're these Lego meets teddy bear style art toys that come in all kinds of sizes. There are special editions with collaboration designs printed on them, but they also come in blank versions. You can pour an acrylic paint mixture over the blanks to create your own bear bricks with cool marble patterns. I wanted to try recreating that idea with my figurine too. It's such a simple activity with great results, and it feels like something anyone can do and enjoy. The tricky part was getting the paint mixture just right. It needs to be runny enough to pour and flow over the figurine, but if it's too watery, all the colors will just blend together and turn into a muddy mess. Personally, I found that a paint to water ratio of 3:1 works best. Once I've mixed each color with water individually, I pour them over one another in a plastic cup. If the paints start blending together, it means your mixture is too watery. Also remember, the last color you pour into the cup will come out first and act as the base for all the others. Now on to the fun part. Watching all the colors flow over the figurine and create that exquisite marbling was so satisfying and beautiful. I was honestly a bit frustrated with my filming setup and skills though. I feel like I didn't do this process justice. This part is so mesmerizing that I'm not going to add any more commentary for now. I'll just let you enjoy the visuals. But before I go quiet for a bit, one quick note. After pouring the main paint mixture, I also added a few individual colors on top of the figurine. That way, areas where the colors blended too much could have more distinct tones. While waiting for the paint to dry, I decided to make an unpainted version as well. I showed my friend some progress photos and he thought the unpainted version would show the figurine's details better. Since I'd spent so much time on the modeling, it would have been a shame not to highlight that. For the white version, I coated each piece with Pearl X powder and sealed them with varnish. Here are all the parts painted, dried and sealed with varnish. I originally wanted the pieces to have a shiny finish, so I used a high gloss varnish, but it ended up being a bit too glossy. To tone it down, I sprayed over them with a semi-gloss Mr. Super Clear sealant. Some of the paint had flowed onto the connection pegs, so I had to file them down for a perfect fit. Honestly, assembling the pieces was one of the highlights of this whole project for me. I just love that satisfying moment when everything clicks perfectly into place. And here it is, my very own Marie Antoinette art toy all assembled. I added a satin ribbon as a choker for the finishing touch. Please enjoy the reveal. If you made it this far, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really hope you enjoyed it. This was such a special project for me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.